Lieutenant Jake Morrison stepped off the human transport shuttle and into the massive alien vessel. The ship was called Nexus Prime, and it was bigger than anything he had ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of smooth metal that changed colors as he walked past. Strange lights floated in the air without any visible source. Everything felt alien and wonderful at the same time. Jake was not alone. Dr. Lisa Grant walked beside him, carrying her research equipment. She was a scientist who studied alien life forms. Behind them came Captain Amy Rodriguez, who was in charge of their small team. There were 2 other humans with them, but Jake was the one the aliens really wanted to meet. The reason was simple. Jake was the best fighter the human military had. He knew many different fighting styles from Earth: boxing, karate, wrestling, and more. The aliens had heard about human combat skills and wanted to see them for themselves. But they also wanted to show humans their own fighting methods. A tall alien creature approached them as they entered the main corridor. It had 4 arms and skin that looked like it was made of silver metal. Its eyes were large and completely black. When it spoke, the words came through a small device that translated its language into English. "Welcome, humans. I am Master Thia of the Vorthok Empire. We are honored to have you aboard our vessel." Jake stepped forward and nodded politely. "Thank you for inviting us, Master Thia. We're excited to learn about your fighting traditions." Master Thylex made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. "Your enthusiasm is admirable, Lieutenant Morrison. But I must warn you, our combat arts have been developed over thousands of your Earth years. Even our youngest students train for decades before mastering the most basic techniques." Dr. Grant was busy scanning the alien with her instruments. She whispered to Jake, "His bone density is incredible, and those 4 arms move independently of each other. This is going to be fascinating." As they walked through the ship, more aliens joined them. Jake saw creatures he had only read about in reports. The Zolani looked like they were made of clear glass, barely visible as they moved. The Korath was short and wide, with skin that actually was made of living crystal. The Umbrals seemed to fade in and out of sight, like shadows that had come to life. Master Thylex led them to a large chamber with high ceilings. The floor was covered in soft mats, and the walls were lined with weapons from different worlds. In the center of the room, several aliens were practicing their fighting forms. They moved with precision that took Jake's breath away. "This is our primary training hall," Master Thylex explained. "Here, our students learn the ancient ways of combat. Each movement you see has been perfected over centuries." Jake watched as a Zolani warrior performed what looked like a dance. The creature's transparent body flowed like water, striking invisible targets with movements so smooth they seemed impossible. Every gesture was perfect, every step placed exactly where it needed to be. "That is the ethereal flow," said Master Vellani, "has been perfecting that sequence for over 200 of your years. She is still considered a student." Captain Rodriguez raised her eyebrows. 200 years and still a student? Our lifespans are much longer than yours," Master Thylex replied. "We have the luxury of time to achieve true perfection. Master Vellani will spend another century refining those movements before she is ready to teach others." Next, they watched a Korath warrior practicing with what looked like stone fists. Each punch created small shockwaves in the air, the crystalline being moved slowly but with tremendous power behind every strike. "The stone fist technique," Master Thylex noted. "Master Grixton has spent 400 years developing the proper breathing methods to channel his inner strength into his strikes. The crystals in his body must resonate at exactly the right frequency." Jake nodded, but he was studying the alien's movements carefully. He could see the basic principles behind the technique. It was about timing, breathing, and body alignment. The same concepts existed in human martial arts, just applied differently. An Umbral warrior was practicing near the far wall, or at least Jake thought it was practicing. The shadow-like being kept disappearing and reappearing in different locations. When it struck, its attack seemed to come from nowhere. "The shadow dance," Master Thylex said with obvious pride. "Master Nixara has been learning to control her phase-shifting abilities for over 3 centuries. She can exist partially in what you might call another dimension, making her attacks nearly impossible to predict or counter." Dr. Grant was taking notes rapidly. The physics involved must be incredible. How do they maintain molecular coherence? While it is not a matter of physics as you understand it, Master Thylex replied. It is about spiritual harmony with the universe itself. Such understanding cannot be rushed. Jake continued to watch, but he was thinking about something else. These aliens had incredible abilities, but their fighting styles seemed very rigid. Each movement was exactly the same every time. There was no adaptation, no improvisation. It was beautiful, but it was also predictable. Would it be possible for me to try some of these techniques? Jake asked. The aliens in the room stopped what they were doing. Master Thylex looked surprised, and the other aliens began whispering among themselves in their various languages. Lieutenant Morrison, Master Thylex said carefully, these techniques require decades of preparation. Your human physiology is quite different from ours. You have only 2 arms. For example, many of our methods would be impossible for you to perform. I understand, Jake said, but I'd like to try anyway. Even if I can only learn the basics, it would be an honor to study your traditions. Master Thylex exchanged glances with the other alien masters. They seemed to be having a silent conversation. Finally, he turned back to Jake. Very well. We can provide you with basic instruction, but you must understand that progress will be very slow. Our youngest students train for 5 years before they are even allowed to attempt their first combat form. Jake smiled. I appreciate your patience. How long do you think it might take me to understand the basic principles? For a human, Master Thylex considered the question seriously. Perhaps 10 to 15 of your years. If you are exceptionally dedicated, the mental discipline required is as important as the physical training. Dr. Grant tried to hide her smile. She knew Jake's background. He had been studying martial arts since he was a child. He had won championships in multiple fighting styles. More importantly, he had a gift for understanding how different combat systems worked and finding ways to improve them. I'd like to start as soon as possible, Jake said. Would tomorrow be acceptable? Tomorrow! Master Thylex seemed shocked. Lieutenant Morrison, we have not even discussed the meditation requirements. Students typically spend months learning to clear their minds before they begin physical training. I understand, Jake replied, but I learned best by doing. Could we perhaps start with some basic movements and add the meditation later? The aliens whispered among themselves again. Jake could tell they thought he was being impatient or disrespectful, but Captain Rodriguez knew her officer well enough to trust his judgment. We will arrange a private training space for you, Master Thylex finally said. Master Vellani will demonstrate the basic principles of ethereal flow, but please do not be discouraged when progress is slow. Your people are known for many talents, but ancient combat arts require a patience that comes from having centuries to perfect each movement. Jake nodded respectfully. Thank you, Master Thylex. I promise to be a dedicated student. As they left the training hall, Dr. Grant walked beside Jake. You realize they think you're crazy, right? She whispered. Jake grinned. Maybe I am, but I have a feeling tomorrow is going to be very interesting. What the aliens did not know was that Jake had already begun analyzing their techniques. His mind was working through the mechanics of each fighting style, breaking down the movements into components he could understand and adapt. He had spent his entire adult life learning to see the patterns that connected all forms of combat. Tomorrow, the aliens would get their first real look at what made humans such effective fighters. It was not just their physical abilities or their aggression. It was their ability to learn, adapt, and improve on anything they encountered. The Vorthok masters had spent centuries perfecting their ancient arts. They were about to discover that sometimes a fresh perspective could accomplish in hours what tradition took decades to achieve. Jake woke up early the next morning in his assigned quarters aboard Nexus Prime. The room was comfortable but strange, with furniture that adjusted to his body automatically and lights that responded to his thoughts. He had spent most of the night thinking about what he had seen in the training hall. After a quick breakfast, he made his way to the private training room Master Thylex had arranged for him. It was smaller than the main hall, but still impressive. The walls could display any environment, and right now they showed a peaceful garden from the Vorthok homeworld. The floor was covered with the same soft mats he had seen before. Master Vellani was waiting for him. The Zalani warrior was even more transparent in the morning light. like looking at someone through clear water. She moved with incredible grace, each step so light it seemed like she was floating. "Good morning, Lieutenant Morrison," she said through her translator device. "Master Thylex has asked me to begin your instruction in the ethereal flow. I must warn you, this technique requires perfect harmony between mind and body." Jake bowed respectfully. "I'm ready to learn, Master Villani. First, you must understand the philosophy," she continued. "The ethereal flow is not about strength or speed. It is about becoming one with the space around you. Watch carefully." Master Villani began to move. Her transparent form seemed to blend with the air itself. She flowed from one position to another like water, her arms moving in patterns that created beautiful shapes. Each movement was connected to the next in an endless dance. Jake watched every detail. He noticed how she shifted her weight, how her breathing changed with each movement, how her feet placed themselves without sound. It was amazing, but he could see the basic principles. It was about balance, timing, and using an opponent's force against them. "The sequence I just performed took me 50 years to learn," Master Villani explained. "Each movement must be perfect before you can progress to the next. Students typically spend months just learning how to stand properly." "It's beautiful," Jake said honestly. "Could you show me just the first movement?" Master Villani seemed surprised, but nodded. She moved into a starting position, her arms held in a specific way, her feet placed at exact angles. "This is the opening stance. You must hold this position while controlling your breathing. The stance teaches you to feel the flow of energy around you." Jake studied the position carefully. He could see it was similar to some Tai Chi stances he knew, but with important differences. The Zilani anatomy was different from human anatomy, but the basic idea was the same. "May I try?" Jake asked. Master Villani gestured for him to proceed. Jake moved into what he thought was the correct position. His arms were not transparent like hers, but he tried to copy the angle and placement. "Exactly. Closer," Master Villani said, adjusting his arm position slightly. "Feel the energy flowing through your body. It should move like a river, smooth and constant." Jake focused on his breathing and tried to feel what she was describing. After a few minutes, something clicked. He could sense a kind of balance in the position, a way of standing that felt more natural than he expected. "Better," Master Villani admitted. "Most students take weeks to find that feeling. Now, try to move to the second position while maintaining the flow." She demonstrated the transition, her body moving smoothly from one stance to another. Jake watched carefully, then attempted to copy the movement. His first try was clumsy, and he lost his balance slightly. "Again," Master Villani said patiently. Jake tried again, this time thinking about the movement differently. Instead of copying exactly what she did, he thought about what the movement was trying to accomplish. It was about shifting weight while maintaining balance, similar to movements he knew from other martial arts. His second attempt was much better. Master Villani's large eyes widened slightly. "That was ... unexpected," she said. "You are learning the transitions much faster than anticipated." Jake smiled. "It reminds me of some things I learned back on Earth. The principles are similar, even if the execution is different." They continued training for the next hour. Jake worked through the first 5 movements of the ethereal flow sequence. Each time, he was able to adapt the alien technique to work with his human body. Where Master Villani's transparent form could do things his solid body could not, he found different ways to achieve similar effects. By the end of the session, Jake had learned movements that Master Villani said usually took months to master. She seemed both impressed and confused by his rapid progress. "I must report this to Master Thylex," she said as they finished. "Your learning speed is highly unusual." After Master Villani left, Jake spent another hour practicing on his own. He worked through the movements he had learned, but he also began experimenting. He tried combining elements of the ethereal flow with boxing footwork. He knew the results were interesting. Later that day, Jake met with his team for lunch. Captain Rodriguez, Dr. Grant, and the other team members were eager to hear about his training session. "How did it go?" Captain Rodriguez asked. "Better than expected," Jake replied. "The techniques are incredible, but they're not as impossible as the aliens think they are. Once you understand the basic principles, You can adapt them. Dr. Grant was taking notes. The aliens seem very concerned about your progress. I've been getting strange looks from them all morning. What kind of strange looks? Jake asked. Like they're worried about something, she replied. Master Thylex asked me several questions about human learning abilities. He seemed particularly interested in how quickly humans can adapt to new situations. That afternoon, Jake had his second training session. This time, Master Thylex himself was present, along with Master Villani. They had also brought the Korath warrior, who specialized in the stone fist technique. Lieutenant Morrison, Master Thylex began. Master Villani has given me an interesting report about your progress. She says you have learned movements in hours that typically take our students months to master. I had good teachers, Jake replied diplomatically. Today, we would like to see you demonstrate what you have learned, Master Thylex continued. Then, if you are willing, Master Grixton will begin instructing you in the stone fist basics. Jake moved into the starting position for the ethereal flow sequence. He performed the 5 movements he had learned, focusing on the smooth transitions and controlled breathing. As he moved, he noticed the aliens watching very carefully. When he finished, there was silence in the room. Remarkable, Master finally said. Your form is not perfect, but it is far better than it should be after only one lesson. Master Grixton stepped forward. The crystalline alien was much shorter than Jake, but incredibly wide and solid-looking. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonated strangely. The stone fist is different from the ethereal flow, he said. It requires great internal strength and perfect timing. Watch! Master Grixton moved into a stance that looked like he was rooted to the ground. His crystalline body began to glow slightly, and Jake could hear a low humming sound. Then, with sudden speed, the alien punched forward. The air itself seemed to crack, and Jake felt the pressure wave from several feet away. That technique requires precise control of internal energy, Master Grixton explained. The crystals in my body must vibrate at exactly the right frequency. It took me decades to learn to generate the proper resonance. Jake nodded, but he was already analyzing what he had seen. The punch was incredibly powerful, but the setup was very obvious. Any opponent would see it coming from a long way off. The real question was whether the power could be generated more quickly and with less obvious preparation. May I try the basic stance? Jake asked. Master Grixton looked at Master Thylex, who nodded slowly. Very well, the crystalline warrior said. But do not attempt to generate power until you have mastered the form. The stone fist can be dangerous if performed incorrectly. Jake moved into the stance Master Grixton showed him. It was completely different from the flowing movements of the ethereal flow. This was about solid connection to the ground, about gathering and focusing power. Feel the energy building in your core. Master Grixton instructed, do not force it, let it grow naturally. Jake concentrated on the feeling the alien described. It was similar to breathing techniques he knew from various earth martial arts. After a few minutes, he thought he could feel something building inside him. Now, release the energy slowly into your arms, Master Grixton said. Do not punch yet. Just feel the power moving through your body. Jake followed the instructions. To his surprise, he could actually feel something moving through his arms. It was not as strong as what the alien had demonstrated, but it was definitely there. Master Grixton's crystal eyes widened. Impossible, he muttered. You should not be able to feel the internal energy so quickly. Master Thylex stepped closer. What is happening, old friend? The human is generating internal energy resonance, Master Grixton replied, his voice filled with disbelief. Students typically train for years before they can even detect the sensation. Jake could see that the aliens were becoming genuinely concerned. What they did not understand was that humans had been developing internal energy techniques for thousands of years. They called it different things in different cultures, but the basic concept was the same. Jake entered the training hall the next morning to find it much more crowded than before. Word of his rapid learning had spread throughout the ship, and many alien warriors had come to watch. He could see Vorthok, Zelani, Korath, and several other species he had not met yet. At the center of the crowd stood a massive creature that made all the other aliens look small. It had 6 legs, a body covered in what looked like black armor, and arms that ended in sharp, blade-like appendages. Its head was triangular, with multiple eyes that seemed to track Jake's every movement. Master Thylex approached Jake with what seemed like nervousness. "Lieutenant Morrison, I would like you to meet Master Vexstar of the Galactic Martial Council. He is one of our most respected combat instructors." The giant alien stepped forward, and when it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal even through the translator. "So you are the human who thinks he can master our ancient arts in days," Master Vexstar said. "I have been observing the recordings of your training sessions. Your progress is ... concerning." Jake remained calm, though he could feel the tension in the room. "I'm just trying to learn, Master Vexstar. Your techniques are incredible." "Indeed they are," the alien replied. "I have spent 800 of your Earth years perfecting the Void Reaper combat style. It is considered one of the most deadly fighting forms in known space. Masters of other disciplines fear to face a Void Reaper in combat." Dr. Grant, who had been watching from the side, stepped closer to Jake. She whispered quietly, "Be careful." The other aliens seemed very tense about this. Master Vexstar continued speaking. "Your rapid learning troubles many of us. Human combat techniques that take our people centuries to master should not be learned in mere hours. It suggests either that our methods are flawed or that you are not truly learning them." "I understand your concern," Jake replied, "but I assure you, I have great respect for your traditions. I'm simply trying to understand the principles behind them." "Principles?" Master Vexstar repeated, making a sound that might have been laughter. "Combat is not about principles, human. It is about perfection, achieved through endless repetition and dedication. You cannot truly know a technique until you have performed it 10,000 times." Jake could see where this was going. The alien was challenging him, and refusing would probably insult the entire gathering, but accepting could be dangerous. Master Vexstar was clearly a formidable opponent. "Perhaps," Jake said carefully, "you could show me some of the Void Reaper techniques. I would be honored to learn from such an experienced master." Master Vexstar's multiple eyes focused on Jake with what seemed like predatory interest. "Show you no, human. I will demonstrate them properly. I challenge you to face me in combat. If you have truly mastered our techniques as quickly as you claim, you should be able to defend yourself." The crowd of aliens began murmuring among themselves. Jake could see that many of them were excited by the prospect of a fight, while others looked worried. Captain Rodriguez, who had just entered the hall, immediately moved toward Jake. "Lieutenant, you don't have to accept this challenge." "With respect, Captain," Jake replied. "I think I do. If I refuse, it will insult our hosts and damage our diplomatic mission." Master Thylex stepped between them. "Perhaps we could arrange a demonstration instead of a full combat challenge. Master Vexstar could show his techniques, and Lieutenant Morrison could respond with his adaptations." "No," Master Vexstar said firmly. "Combat cannot be demonstrated. Safely it must be experienced. The human claims to understand our ways after only days of training. Let him prove it." Jake looked around the room at all the watching aliens. He could see that this moment was important for more than just his own reputation. The aliens needed to understand what humans were capable of, and sometimes the only way to communicate was through action. "I accept your challenge, Master Vex," Jake said, "but I request that we use training protocols to prevent serious injury." Master Vexstar made his grinding laugh sound again. "Agreed. We will use the standard combat protocols. First to achieve 3 successful strikes wins the match." The aliens quickly cleared a large space in the center of the training hall. Jake could see that some kind of energy barrier was being activated around the combat area. Dr. Grant was scanning everything with her instruments, probably worried about his safety. "Jake," Captain Rodriguez said quietly, "are you sure about this? We don't know what that creature is really capable of." "I'll be fine, Captain," Jake replied. "I've been studying the recordings of Void Reaper techniques all night. I think I understand how it works." Master Vexstar moved to the center of the combat area. His 6 legs positioned themselves in a perfect stance, and his blade-like arms moved into guard positions. the alien's entire body seemed to change, becoming more predatory and dangerous. The Void Reaper style is based on speed and precision, Master Vexstar announced to the crowd. Every movement is calculated to be unavoidable. Every strike is designed to end combat immediately. Jake entered the combat area and took a basic fighting stance. He looked small and vulnerable compared to the massive alien, but he did not seem afraid. "Begin," Master Thylex called out. Master Vexstar moved faster than Jake had expected. The alien's 6 legs allowed it to change direction instantly, and its blade arms struck in patterns that seemed impossible to predict. Jake barely managed to dodge the first attack, rolling to the side as the alien's blades cut through the air where he had been standing. The crowd of aliens made sounds of approval. This was what they had expected. The human was clearly outmatched, but Jake was not just dodging randomly. He was learning. Every attack that Master Vexstar made taught him something new about the Void Reaper style. The alien's movements were incredibly fast and precise, but they followed patterns, and patterns could be predicted. Master Vexstar's second attack was a complex combination that used all of his limbs in sequence. Jake managed to avoid the worst of it, but one of the alien's blades touched his shoulder, scoring the first point. "First strike to Master Vexstar," Master Thylex announced. Jake stepped back and reassessed. The alien's fighting style was based on overwhelming opponents with speed and complexity. But Jake had noticed something important. Master Vexstar's attacks were so refined and perfected that they were becoming predictable. 800 years of practice had made the alien's movements flawless, but also rigid. When Master Vexstar attacked again, Jake was ready. Instead of trying to avoid the attack completely, he stepped into it. This was something the alien had probably never experienced. Most opponents tried to get away from the deadly blades, not move closer to them. Jake's counterattack was simple, but effective. He used a basic boxing combination, but he applied it at the exact moment when Master Vexstar was committed to his own attack pattern. The alien could not change direction quickly enough to avoid Jake's strikes. Jake's fist connected with Master Vexstar's armored chest, scoring his first point. "First strike to Lieutenant Morrison," Master Thylex announced, and Jake could hear surprise in the alien's voice. The crowd had gone quiet. They had not expected the human to score so quickly. Master Vexstar seemed surprised as well. "Interesting," the alien said. "You did not fight as I expected. Most opponents try to stay away from my blades. Sometimes the best defense is a good offense," Jake replied. The next exchange was longer and more complex. Master Vexstar used a technique that Jake had not seen before, attacking from multiple angles simultaneously. But Jake had been studying the alien's movement patterns, and he could see the setup coming. Instead of trying to block or dodge, Jake used something he had learned from the ethereal flow training. He moved like water, flowing around the alien's attacks while staying close enough to counterattack. When Master Vexstar's combination finished, Jake was in perfect position to strike. His second hit was even cleaner than the first, catching the alien in a gap between defensive positions. "Second strike to Lieutenant Morrison," Master Thylex announced. Now the crowd was definitely interested. The human was winning against one of their most feared combat masters. "Master," Vexstar stepped back and studied Jake carefully. "You are not fighting like any opponent I have faced before. Your techniques are ... unorthodox." "I'm using what you taught me," Jake replied. "The ethereal flow, the stone fist basics, and some ideas of my own." "Impossible," Master Vexstar said. "Those techniques cannot be combined. They are from completely different combat philosophies." "Maybe that's the problem," Jake said. "You've all spent so much time perfecting individual techniques that you've forgotten they're just tools. The real art is knowing when and how to use them." Master Vexstar's attack came without warning, faster and more vicious than anything he had shown before. This was clearly his ultimate technique, refined over centuries of practice. The alien's 6 legs, 2 arms, an entire body moved in a perfect symphony of destruction. Jake had never seen anything like it. The attack was so complex and beautiful that for a moment he just admired it. Then his training kicked in. Instead of trying to match the alien's complexity, Jake simplified. He used basic human boxing footwork to step inside the alien's guard. He used the breathing techniques from the stone fist training to generate power. He used the flow principles from the ethereal flow to time his counterattack perfectly. Jake stood in front of a group of 20 alien students, feeling nervous for the first time since arriving on Nexus Prime. Teaching was different from fighting. In combat, he only had to worry about himself. Now, he was responsible for helping others learn. The students came from different species. There were young Vorthok with their 4 arms, several Zelani who shimmered like living glass, a few Chorus whose crystal bodies caught the light, and some aliens Jake had not met before. They all looked at him with curiosity and doubt. Commander, Steve Parker had arrived on Nexus Prime the day before to help negotiate the teaching arrangement. He stood at the back of the room with Captain Rodriguez and Dr. Grant, watching Jake's first lesson with interest. "Good morning, everyone," Jake began. "I know this is unusual. A human teaching alien combat techniques seems backward, but I'm not here to replace your traditional methods. I'm here to show you different ways of thinking about them." A young Vorthok named Zarakith raised 2 of her 4 hands. "Master Morrison, how can you teach us techniques that took you only days to learn? Our masters say true knowledge takes centuries to acquire." Jake smiled at being called Master Morrison. It felt strange, but also respectful. "That's exactly what we're going to explore, Zarakith. Tell me, how long have you been studying combat?" 50 years, she replied. "I am still working on the basic forms of the 4-armed dance. My progress has been very slow." "What makes it slow?" Jake asked. Zarakith looked confused by the question. "The technique is complex. Each movement must be perfect before moving to the next. My instructors say I must master the first form completely before attempting the second." "I see," Jake said. "What if I told you that you might be able to learn faster by studying multiple forms at the same time?" The alien students looked shocked. A Korath named Braxton spoke up. "That is forbidden. Master Grixton says that mixing techniques before mastering them individually leads to confusion and failure." "Maybe on your worlds," Jake replied. "But humans learn differently. We practice something called cross-training. Instead of perfecting one skill at a time, we study many skills together. This helps us see connections between them." Jake moved to the center of the training space. "Watch this. Zarakith, show me the first movement of the 4-armed dance." The young Vorthok moved into position. Her 4 arms created a complex pattern that was beautiful, but looked very rehearsed. Every movement was exactly the same as Jake had seen other Vorthok perform. "Very good," Jake said. "Now, Braxton, show me the basic stone fist stance." The Korath warrior moved into the solid, grounded position that Jake recognized from his training with Master Grixton. The stance was powerful, but completely different from the flowing Vorthok movement. "Excellent," Jake continued. "Now, here's something interesting. Both of these techniques are about controlling energy in your body. The 4-armed dance uses flowing energy, and the stone fist uses focused energy. What if we combine them?" Jake demonstrated by moving into a stance that was part Vorthok flow and part Korath power. It looked strange at first, but as he continued the movement, the students could see how the 2 styles enhanced each other. "This is impossible," Braxton said. "The philosophies are completely different." "Are they?" Jake asked. "Or are they just different ways of achieving the same goal? Control, balance, and effective use of your body's natural abilities." Dr. Elena Martinez, the team's cultural expert who had arrived with Commander Parker, was taking detailed notes. She whispered to Dr. Grant, "This is fascinating. He's challenging thousands of years of alien educational tradition." Jake spent the next hour showing the students basic exercises that combined elements from different fighting styles. He taught them to look for similarities instead of differences. He showed them how human boxing footwork could improve Zelani flow techniques, and how ethereal flow breathing could make Stonefist power generation more efficient. The students were hesitant at first, but gradually they began to experiment. Zarakith was the most eager to try new things. Her 4 arms gave her natural advantages, but 50 years of rigid training had made her movements predictable. "Zarakith," Jake said, try the four-armed dance sequence, but add some of the balance principles from the stone fist training. She attempted the combination, and at first it was clumsy. But on her third try, something clicked. Her movements became more grounded and powerful while keeping their flowing nature. I felt something different that time, she said excitedly. The movements felt more natural, like my body wanted to move that way. The other students gathered around to watch as Zarakith repeated the modified sequence. It was clearly better than her traditional form, even though she had only practiced it for a few minutes. How is this possible? Asked a Zalani student named Sylthan. She has been working on perfecting the traditional form for decades, because the traditional form was designed for perfect conditions, Jake explained. In real combat, you need to adapt constantly. If you only know one way to do something, you're limited. If you know 3 ways, you can choose the best one for each situation. Jake had the students practice in pairs, with each person teaching their partner techniques from their own species' fighting styles. Then they worked together to find ways to combine them. The room filled with excited chatter as the aliens discovered new possibilities. Commander Parker approached Jake during a break in the training. "Lieutenant, this is incredible! I've never seen aliens collaborate like this before. Usually, each species keeps their combat techniques secret. That's part of the problem," Jake replied. "They've been so focused on perfecting their individual styles that they've stopped learning from each other." After lunch, Jake introduced a new concept that made the aliens even more uncomfortable. "Today, we're going to practice something called sparring," he announced. "What is sparring?" Zarakith asked. "It's practice fighting," Jake explained. "Instead of just rehearsing perfect techniques, you practice against an opponent who doesn't know what you're going to do. This teaches you to adapt and improvise." The students looked nervous. "But what if we make mistakes?" Braxton asked. "What if our techniques are not perfect? Then you learn from the mistakes," Jake said. "Making mistakes in practice means you won't make them in real situations." Jake demonstrated by asking Zarakith to spar with him. He moved slowly and defensively, letting her practice her techniques against a moving target. At first, she tried to perform her rehearsed sequences exactly as she had been taught. But Jake's unpredictable movements made that impossible. "Stop thinking about perfect form," Jake advised. "Think about what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to strike me, control distance, or create an opening? Let the technique serve the goal, not the other way around." Gradually, Zarakith began to relax and improvise. She started mixing movements from different styles, adapting her attacks based on what Jake was doing. Her progress was remarkable. "I understand now," she said after the sparring session. "The techniques are just tools. The real skill is knowing how to use them." Word of Jake's teaching methods spread quickly throughout Nexus Prime. Soon, alien masters were quietly observing his classes. Some were horrified by what they saw, but others were intrigued. Master Villani approached Jake after one session. "Lieutenant Morrison, what you are teaching goes against everything we have believed about combat training. Does that make it wrong?" Jake asked. "Perhaps not," she admitted. "I have been watching Zarakith's progress. In 1 week with your methods, she has improved more than in the previous 5 years of traditional training." "Your traditional methods aren't bad," Jake assured her. "They've created incredible techniques, but maybe they don't have to be the only way to learn those techniques." Master Villani was quiet for a long moment. "Would you be willing to teach some of the instructors your methods? We are finding it difficult to help students who have become excited about cross-training." Jake smiled. "I'd be happy to help. The instructor training sessions were different from the student classes. The alien masters had centuries of experience and deeply held beliefs about proper combat training, but they were also intelligent enough to recognize results. When they saw them, Jake worked with them to develop new teaching methods that combined traditional alien techniques with human learning principles. They created exercises that allowed students to explore multiple combat styles safely. They established sparring protocols that encouraged experimentation without abandoning the precision. That made alien techniques so effective. Not all the masters were convinced. Master Grixton attended one session and left in disgust, muttering about humans corrupting ancient traditions. But many others were fascinated by the possibilities. The most interesting thing Dr. Martinez noted in her reports is that Jake isn't teaching the aliens to fight like humans, he's teaching them to learn like humans. The techniques they develop are still distinctly alien, just more adaptable. 3 weeks after Jake's first lesson, Zarakith requested permission to spar with one of the advanced students who had been training traditionally for over a century. The match was observed by many of the ship's masters. The older student was technically superior in every way. His movements were flawless, his technique perfect, but Zarakith was unpredictable. 6 months had passed since Jake first arrived on Nexus Prime. The ship no longer looked the same. Training halls that once separated different species now hosted mixed groups of students. Walls that had displayed traditional fighting forms now showed hybrid techniques that combined multiple combat styles. Jake stood in the main amphitheater, watching a demonstration that would have been impossible when he first arrived. Zarakith was leading a group of students from 5 different species. Through a training exercise she had designed herself, her forearms moved with fluid precision as she showed them how to adapt Vorthok techniques for creatures with different body types. Colonel Ben Hughes had arrived a week before to oversee the expanded human-alien training program. He watched the demonstration with amazement, taking notes for his report to Earth Command. "I've never seen anything like this," Colonel Hughes said to Jake. "When we sent you here, we expected you to learn from them. Instead, you've started a revolution." Jake smiled as he watched Silthan, the Zalani student, teaching a young Korath how to add flowing movements to stone fist techniques. The crystal-bodied alien was actually becoming more transparent as he moved, borrowing from Zalani methods to enhance his own natural abilities. "It's not a revolution," Jake replied. "It's just students learning to think for themselves instead of only copying their teachers." Dr. Grant approached him with her latest research data. "Jake, you need to see these measurements. The students using your cross-training methods are not just learning faster. They're developing techniques that are objectively better than the traditional ones." She showed him readings from the combat sensors. Zarakith's modified four-armed dance was 30% more efficient than the classical version. Braxton's hybrid stone fist technique generated more power while using less energy. Even more surprising, the students were continuing to improve their techniques on their own. The traditional masters spent centuries perfecting static techniques, Dr. Grant explained. But your students are creating dynamic techniques that keep evolving. They're not trying to reach perfection, they're trying to reach constant improvement. Across the amphitheater, Jake could see some of the older masters watching with mixed emotions. Master Thylex had embraced the new methods enthusiastically and was now one of Jake's most effective teaching partners. Master Vellani had started incorporating human learning principles into her ethereal flow instruction. But Master Grixton stood apart from the others, his crystalline features showing clear disapproval. He had refused to participate in any of the cross-training programs and had forbidden his advanced students from attending Jake's classes. "Master Grixton is not happy with the changes," Jake observed. "Change is never easy for people who have invested their entire lives in one way of doing things," Colonel Hughes replied. "But the results speak for themselves." Jake's attention was drawn to a commotion on the training floor. A group of students from different species had spontaneously started sparring together, creating combinations that no single fighting tradition could have produced. A Zalani warrior used phase-shifting abilities to set up attacks for her Korath partner, while a young Vorthok provided covering techniques with his forearms. They're not just learning techniques anymore, Jake realized. They're learning to work together as a team. This was something that had never happened before on Nexus Prime. Each species had always trained separately, keeping their combat methods secret from others. But Jake's students had started sharing everything, creating a community of learning that crossed all species boundaries. Master Vexstar approached the group. The massive alien had become one of Jake's strongest supporters after their initial combat challenge. His ancient Void Reaper techniques had evolved dramatically through exposure to human teaching methods. Lieutenant Morrison, Master Vexstar said, "The Galactic Martial Council has reached a decision. They want to establish training centers throughout known space based on your methods." Jake was surprised by the announcement. Throughout known space? That's a huge responsibility. You have proven that the old ways of teaching are not the only ways. Master Vexstar continued. Your students are achieving in months what took us decades. More importantly, they are creating new techniques that surpass our traditional method. Colonel Hughes stepped forward. What exactly is the council proposing? Joint training facilities on multiple worlds, Master Vexstar explained. Human instructors working with alien masters to develop new teaching methods. Students from all species learning together instead of in isolation. Jake looked out at his students, who were still practicing their collaborative techniques. Zarakith had just executed a move that combined Vorthok flow, Korath power, and Zelani phase shifting in a single fluid sequence. It was beautiful and deadly, and it would have been impossible under the old system. There's something I need to tell you first, Jake said. The methods I've been teaching aren't really special human techniques. They're just basic learning principles that humans discovered because we had to. What do you mean? Master Vexstar asked. Jake gestured toward. The sparring students. Humans have short lifespans compared to most of you. We don't have centuries to perfect single techniques, so we learn to adapt quickly, to cross-train, to constantly improve. What you call revolutionary teaching methods, we call basic education. Dr. Grant nodded in agreement. Jake's right. Human learning methods developed out of necessity. We had to find faster ways to acquire skills because we don't live long enough for the traditional approach. Are you saying that all humans learn this way? Master Thylex asked. Most of us, Jake replied. Humans have been combining different fighting styles for thousands of years. We call it mixed martial arts. We've been using cross-training in sports, education, and military preparation for generations. The alien masters exchanged glances. Jake could see that this revelation was changing their understanding of humans and of learning itself. Then perhaps, Master Vexter said slowly, it is not your teaching methods we need to study. Perhaps it is your entire approach to knowledge and improvement. The conversation was interrupted by a challenge from Master Grixton. The old Korath master stepped into the center of the training area, his crystal body glowing with contained energy. Enough of this nonsense, he announced loudly. I challenge any student of these so-called improved methods to face me in traditional combat. Let us see if shortcuts can defeat centuries of proper training. The training hall fell silent. Master Grixton was one of the most powerful fighters on Nexus Prime, with over 400 years of stone fist mastery. None of the students had been training long enough to face such an opponent. Zarakith stepped forward. I accept your challenge, Master Grixton Zarakith. No, Jake started to say, but she held up one of her 4 hands. Master Morrison, you taught us that techniques are just tools. You taught us to adapt and overcome. Let me show everyone what that really means. Master Grixton laughed, a sound like grinding stones. Child, you have been training for less than a year, using these human methods. I have been perfecting my techniques for 4 centuries. Then this should be educational for both of us, Zaraketh replied calmly. The combat began immediately. Master Grixton moved with the precision and power that came from centuries of practice. His stone fist techniques were flawless, each movement perfectly executed. But Zarakith did not try to match his traditional approach. Instead, she used everything Jake had taught her about adaptation and flow. When Master Grixton attacked with overwhelming force, she used Zelani techniques to redirect his energy. When he tried to pin her down with superior power, she used ethereal flow principles to stay mobile. Most importantly, she did something that Master Grixton had never experienced in 4 centuries of combat. She kept changing. Every time he adapted to one of her techniques, she switched to something completely different. The fight lasted longer than anyone expected. Master Grixton's experience and power were incredible, but Zarakith's adaptability kept her in the match. She was not trying to defeat him with superior technique. She was trying to outlast him by being unpredictable. In the end, it was Master Grixton who called for a halt to the combat. Enough, he said, breathing heavily. I cannot defeat an opponent who refuses to fight the same way twice. He looked at Zaraketh with something like respect. You did not win, young one, but you did not lose either, and that should have been impossible. Zaraketh bowed respectfully. Thank you for the lesson, Master Grixton. I learned much about the power of traditional techniques. As did I, the old master admitted. I learned that perhaps there is value in methods I do not understand. Jake felt a surge of pride watching his student. She had not just demonstrated fighting skill, she had shown wisdom, respect, and the ability to bridge different approaches to combat. Over the following weeks, the changes on Nexus Prime accelerated. Master Grixton began attending Jake's instructor sessions, quietly learning about cross-training. Methods! The Galactic Marshal Council approved funding for training centers on 12 different worlds. Most importantly, the students began teaching each other. Zaraket started her own classes, sharing what she had learned with younger students.